Julia looked through the porthole and saw the outside lights flickering erratically. In fear, she stepped back and suddenly, a black hand covered her mouth from behind. As she reached for her daughter, she sank into a delusion. When she regained consciousness, her daughter was no longer there. Following her daughter's voice, Julia came to a door. When she tried to open it, her hand burned. The room seemed to tremble like an earthquake, and objects crashed around her. She heard her daughter blaming her, as if she had left her behind. As she tried to explain, she saw a swirling vision through the door and felt dizzy. Then, suddenly, she was back in the airplane cabin. Her daughter said she had been acting strangely, first staring blankly, then suddenly turning around and finally collapsing to her knees. Just as she was about to speak, David called her for emergency assistance. The man with the burnt face is in critical condition. As Julia held his head and observed everything, she opened the first aid kit to bandage her own burnt hand. Julia admitted her hallucinations were becoming worse. She could no longer tell the difference between dream and reality. The artist continued sketching and muttered softly, "Everyone needs to wake up." Suddenly, Julia grew agitated, and David tried to calm her down. Julia noticed that the elderly woman had gone to the washroom. She went over to the burnt man and saw that his condition had worsened. He was groaning weakly. The artist thought maybe he was asking for his phone. After unlocking it and showing him pictures of his family, the man passed away immediately. Julia apologized to the artist. The artist asked, "Why do you always hold on to your locket?" Julia replied, "My mother gave it to me. Holding it makes me feel safe." The artist said, "Then hold it tight." Although the artist seemed a bit strange, Julia returned to her seat with her daughter. Suddenly, she remembered the elderly woman and rushed to knock on the washroom door to look for her. When flight attendants opened the door, they found no one inside. Even after searching the entire plane, the woman was nowhere to be found. Just then, the dead old man began calling her, reaching out as if trying to grab her. In panic, she collapsed into a seat, as if countless black hands were pulling her down. She realized this was row 19, the seat she had been in on the day of the plane crash. She woke again. This too had been another hallucination. Something was terribly wrong. Julia wanted to get off the plane with her daughter. When David tried to stop her, blood suddenly began streaming from his eyes. Julia was determined to escape, but a flight attendant warned her not to. Right then, another attendant beside her suddenly began vomiting water. She choked and died on the spot. Beside her, the artist kept sketching. Julia snatched the sketchbook from him and saw reflections of her hallucinations, and on the final page was a path out of it all. In that moment, the artist's hand burst into flames and his body was reduced to ashes. Julia ran to open the cabin door, but David and a flight attendant tried to stop her. "We want to protect you," David said. "Why?" Julia asked. Just then, an invisible force dragged the attendant away. David's head burst open and bled as he collapsed and died. Now only Julia and her daughter were left alive. She banged on the door and finally managed to open it, but beyond the door was an identical cabin. No matter how far they went, they seemed stuck in an infinite loop. Julia realized this wasn't real. Then she saw her daughter sitting in a seat ahead. A shadowy figure approached her daughter. Julia ran toward her, when suddenly she heard the old woman's voice. The woman revealed the truth. Many years ago, on the day of the plane crash, she had been seated next to little Julia. She couldn't bear the thought of a child witnessing such horror, so she cast a spell to put her into a deep sleep, so that